Hello and welcome to my channel. This is part 2 of my new player series for the Guardian profession. This is not a deep dive into the meta endgame, but an introduction for new and returning players in the hope of saving them many hours of research on the Guild Wars 2 wiki. In part 1, we covered the profession's archetype, history, and overall game style. Here in part 2, we will look at the Guardian's unique abilities and utility slot skills. In part 3, brains will be melted as we drill down into all its current weapons and their mechanics. Part 4, we will talk about specializations and currently viable builds for each game type. Finally, part 5 will be a real community love fest as we fashion wars the hell out of the valiant Guardian with screenshots and images from you lovely viewers. And of course, no guide would be complete without veteran players sharing their hard-won insights, tips, and opinions. So let's jump into it. Virtues are not just an ideal for the Guardian, they are a vital mechanic providing both passive and activated effects on you, your allies, and your enemies. Guardians have a relatively low health pool, but its virtues help to compensate for this. Bound to your function keys, their passive effects regenerate health, grant Aegis, and cause condition damage on your foes. The Guardian is a very durable profession, and this is in no small part due to its virtues, as well as its many utility and elite skills which focus on the use of boons and active defense. The 3 standard virtues are Justice, Resolve, and Courage. F1, Virtue of Justice, applies a conditioned burn on your target every few attacks. This burn stacks twice but can affect up to 5 targets in a 600 radius, with its first burn lasting 2 seconds and the second lasting 4 seconds. Its activated effect allows you and your allies to inflict an additional burn with your and their next attack. This active effect will only trigger on one target, even if your weapon can hit multiple enemies. There are a number of traits which can enhance and modify justice, and these traits have PvE and PvP variants too. For example, the PvE Zealous Scepter trait found in the Zeal specialization grants might when you attack your target. This grants 2 stacks of might for 10 seconds each time the passive effect of justice triggers. It's good to note that any offhand and utility skill can trigger this might regeneration when you are wielding a scepter. For conditioned PvE builds, Permeating Wrath, found in the Virtues line, can also modify the passive effect of Justice to burn the area around your target, increasing your effective condition output. This effect stacks 2 burns, triggers 3 times, and can affect up to 5 targets. F5, Virtue of Resolve, regenerates health continuously. The trait Purity of Body from the Honor line enhances Resolve's passive effect, granting a 15% boost to endurance regeneration. Your endurance is found here and is the resource used to dodge. For group support, Battle Presence, found in Virtues, shares the passive healing you benefit from with up to 5 allies in a radius around you of 600. Resolve on activation heals you and up to 5 allies, again in a radius of 600. This effect also cures 2 conditions on your character, but can be traded by Absolute Resolve, found in Virtues, which allows the condition cure to affect up to 5 allies. It can cure 3 conditions and increases the passive health regeneration of Resolve by 25%. F3, Virtue of Courage, grants Aegis every 20 seconds. Aegis, found here above your action bar, is a consumable buff which blocks the next incoming enemy attack. The trait Power of the Virtuous, found in the Virtues line, reduces the recharge of all your virtues by 15% and increases your damage output by 1% for each boon you currently have. On activation, it grants you and up to 5 allies an additional charge of Aegis. This action can be traded by Inspired Virtue, again in the Virtues line, to grant you and your allies 3 stacks of might, 5 seconds of health regeneration, and 5 seconds of protection, which reduces incoming damage by 33%. A useful trait for survivability is Indomitable Courage, which modifies the active effect of Virtue of Courage, making it a stun breaker and granting you and up to 5 allies 3 stacks of stability for 4 seconds. Stability is a consumable buff which protects against crowd control effects like knockdowns, pushes and pulls. Heart of Thorns players who have unlocked and equipped the Dragonhunter specialization should note the changes to your virtues. F1 is now Spear of Justice. Its passive effect applies 2 stacks of burning to your target for 2 seconds. On activation, it now launches a Spear of Light at your target. This cripples your foe, reducing its movement speed by 50%, and also reveals your target, preventing them from using stealth abilities for 6 seconds. The icon on this skill changes once activated, and you can then use it a second time to pull your target towards you. The pull has a range of 1200 and is unblockable and cannot be evaded. F2 is now Wings of Resolve, which still passively regenerates health, but its activated mechanic is now a ground targeted leap. As you land, you heal yourself and your allies at the target location. It also cures a condition and grants significantly more healing for both you and up to 5 allies than Virtue of Resolve. It's worth noting that Wings of Resolve's base healing has been reduced by 24% in PvP as of the May 26th balance patch. F3, Shield of Courage still grants Aegis, but its activated skill now creates a visible shield wall directly in front of you, which blocks incoming damage for 3 seconds with a cooldown of 60 seconds. If you select the Dragonhunter Bulwark trait, the shield duration is increased by 2 seconds and its radius is increased by 33%. I have mentioned only a few of the traits which can affect your virtues here, but we will cover all the traits in part 4 of this guide. Symbols linked to your weapon attacks are ground-based skills which can damage your enemies and aid your allies. Symbols generally persist for a few moments and are light combo fields which offer protection and cleansing to your allies as well as granting retaliation. All symbols last for 4 seconds. Symbol of Blades, found on your sword, teleports you to your target location and creates a symbol at your feet. The symbol damages your target and grants 1.5 seconds of fury to you and your allies. The Scepter skill, Symbol of Punishment, also damages your foes and grants you fury, but for 5 seconds. Both attacks can affect up to 5 targets. The Mace skill, Symbol of Faith, and the Hammer skill, Symbol of Protection, both damage your foes, and their symbols grant healing regeneration to you and your allies. The Great Sword skill, Symbol of Wrath, damages your foe while granting 1 second of retaliation to up to 5 allies. The Staff skill, Symbol of Swiftness, is a ground-targeted skill. Its symbol damages foes, granting 4 seconds of swiftness to allies. For Dragon Hunters, the Longbow skill, Symbol of Energy, creates a slow arcing arrow which explodes on impact, causing burning to up to 5 targets, and creates a symbol at the target's location that grants Vigor for 3 seconds. Vigor increases endurance regeneration by 50%, allowing you to dodge more frequently. The Zeal specialization trait, Symbolic Exposure, Power and Avenger all enhance the damage done by your symbols. Exposure applies vulnerability, and Power and Avenger both increase the symbol's damage, with Power offering a chance to apply burning. The Honor trait, Writ of Persistence, increases the size and duration of all symbols by 2 seconds and allows all of them to heal your allies. Consecration skill types provide condition removal and projectile reflection. The Guardian has access to 4 consecration skills. The utility skill, Sanctuary, is a consecration type skill as well as a ward, which we will cover next. The Sanctuary skill itself forms a protective healing shield for the Guardian and their allies. Neither foes nor projectiles can enter the affected area. Hallowed Ground is a ground-targeted effect which consecrates the earth, granting stability to allies inside its 900 range, and acts as a combo fire field. You are also granted retaliation for 2 seconds, and the duration of boons are increased inside its area of effect. Purging Flames creates a ring of fire that burns enemies and cures conditions on up to 5 allies. It also reduces condition duration by 33%. In total, 3 conditions can be removed with this skill. You should note there is no cap on the number of foes who can be affected by Purging Flames, and it can hit a single target multiple times. Wall of Reflection creates a ground-targeted barrier that reflects projectiles and also acts as a combo light field. The barrier lasts for 10 seconds, and you must be stood behind it to receive its protection. All consecration skills benefit from the Master of Consecration trait found in the Virtues line, which increases the duration of these skills and reduces their cooldown. Wards, linked to both weapon skills and the utility skill Sanctuary, form magical ground effect lines or circles that can trap or repel enemies. They can be mitigated by stability, but can be hard to see in large-scale battles. The staff weapon has a ward skill called Line of Warding. This ground-targeted skill creates a blue flaming line foes cannot cross, which persists for 5 seconds. The hammer's ward skill is Ring of Warding, which creates a ring around you that repels incoming enemies and traps those inside it. This effect lasts for 5 seconds. For dragon hunters, the longbow skill, Hunter's Ward, transforms your arrows into a magical barrier and deals direct damage at the targeted location. This 1200 range attack cripples for 2 seconds, and its final impact causes additional damage. Enemies caught inside it when the attack finishes are tagged with Hunter's Mark. The mark surrounds the target with ethereal chains, immobilizing them for 4 seconds. The only other profession with access to a ward skill is elementalists when they are attuned to earth. These weapons and their skills will be fully covered in part 3 of this series. Spirit weapons, a utility type skill, are summoned by the Guardian to fight by their side. They can be triggered to unleash additional attacks or to heal and protect your allies and hamper your enemies. These weapons will follow you and are temporary, so you will need to resummon them periodically. For returning players, summoned weapons are no longer dispelled when commanded, but they can be attacked and destroyed. Bow of Truth summons an arcane longbow, which does not attack but cures conditions on you and your allies, and on command heals up to 5 allies for 9 seconds. Hammer of Wrath summons an arcane hammer, which can attack up to 3 targets in a 3-hit chaining attack, with the last hit causing knockback. You can also command the hammer to do additional damage to your target and knock them down for 3 seconds. Shield of the Avenger summons an arcane shield which periodically generates a barrier that absorbs projectiles but does not repel enemies. On command, the shield acts as a stun breaker and then hurls itself at the enemy, bouncing between up to 3 targets, applying weakness for 6 seconds. You are also granted 6 seconds of Aegis from this skill. Finally, Sword of Justice summons an arcane sword that attacks up to 3 enemies for 45 seconds. On command, the blade thrusts itself into the ground, causing additional damage and applying 5 stacks of vulnerability to up to 5 targets. When using spirit weapons, you may want to consider using the Zeal trait Expeditious Spirit, as it adds a burn to spirit weapon attacks and reduces the cooldown of all command skills. The Guardian has access to 6 meditation skills, which can be used for teleportation, healing, condition removal, and area of effect damage. Contemplation of Purity is a stun breaker that also converts any conditions you are currently afflicted with into boons. Judge's Intervention is another stun breaker and teleports you to your target's location. It also applies 3 stacks of burning to up to 5 targets. Merciful Intervention is a ground-targeted skill that shadow steps you to your target's location and grants healing to up to 5 allies. Smite Condition cures 2 conditions and inflicts damage on your target and additional damage for each condition cured. This skill can affect up to 5 targets in a radius of 360. Litany of Wrath is a self-healing skill which also grants further healing as a percentage of the damage you are dealing to your target. Finally, the elite skill Renewed Focus grants you 3 seconds of invulnerability and recharges all your virtue skills. For survivability, the Valor trait Monk's Focus grants healing and 4 seconds of fury in a 240 radius around you when using any meditation skill. It also reduces the cooldown of all meditation skills by 25%. A shout is a skill type that affects a wide area. Certain shouts give boons to allies, while others can be used to debuff your enemies. Guardians have access to 6 shout skills, all with a range of 600. Feel My Wrath grants 10 seconds of fury and 5 seconds of quickness to you and up to 5 allies. Stand Your Ground is a stun breaker that grants 6 seconds of stability and 5 seconds of retaliation on yourself and up to 5 targets. Save Yourselves is also a stun breaker which draws conditions from nearby allies to you. This shout also grants a number of boons, with a duration of 10 seconds each. These boons are Fury, Might, Protection, Regeneration, Resistance, Retaliation, Swiftness, and Vigor. Retreat grants 20 seconds of Aegis and 20 seconds of Swiftness to up to 5 allies. Hold the Line grants 4 seconds of Protection and 6 seconds of Regeneration for up to 5 allies. Receive the Light is another stun breaker which grants 6 seconds of stability and 5 seconds of retaliation to yourself and allies. Thinking about a smooth leveling experience, the Valor trait, Altruistic Healing, grants healing for every boon you apply. Skills that apply multiple stacks of might or stability will trigger healing for each stack, and this healing will also affect allies you have shared boons to. When dealing with condition-heavy encounters, the Honor skill, Pure of Voice, allows shout skills to recharge 20% faster, and your shouts convert conditions into boons. There are 6 Signet Skills in the Guardian's arsenal, which have a passive and activated function. During their recharge period, the benefit of their passive effect is lost. The Healing skill, Signet of Resolve, passively cures conditions on you every few seconds when equipped, and on activation is a self-heal. The Radiance trait, Healer's Retribution, grants 5 seconds of retaliation when you cast healing skills and is a good fit to enhance resolve. The Elite skill, Signet of Courage, passively generates healing in a radius around the Guardian in 10-second intervals, and when activated, fully heals you and up to 5 allies with an extended range of 1200. This is not an instant activation, so moving while casting Courage will interrupt the skill, triggering its internal cooldown of 4 seconds. Signet of Judgment passively reduces incoming damage by 10%, and when activated, it grants 3 seconds of retaliation, reflecting damage back to its source, and applies 2 stacks of burning on up to 5 targets in a 300 radius. This skill is also a stun breaker. Bane Signet passively improves power, which directly increases flat damage output. On activation, this skill acts as a hard crowd control, knocking down your target for 3 seconds. Signet of Mercy passively improves all healing output, including from skills, traits, and regenerative boons. Its active effect revives downed allies or NPCs and can be cast from a medium range of 900. Please note this skill cannot revive defeated allies. Signet of Wrath passively increases condition damage and when cast, immobilizes a single target for 3 seconds. Signet of Wrath benefits from the Zeal trait, Binding Jeopardy, which applies vulnerability to immobilized targets. All signets benefit from the Radiance trait, Perfect Inscriptions, which allows signets to regenerate faster and also gives Light Aura on activation, which grants you 2 seconds of retaliation and applies 8 vulnerability on your target. The Virtue trait, Altruistic Healing, which heals you and your allies when you apply boons, synergizes well with many Signet skills as well as with many Shout skills. For Dragon Hunters, you have access to traps. Trap skills used by rangers and thieves also only trigger when an enemy enters their area of effect. Unused traps will dissipate after 5 minutes. When Guardian traps are triggered, you are granted an additional boon, depending on the trap used. You should note that Guardian traps cannot be used in underwater combat. Purification, when laid, heals for a base 1608. And when triggered, blinds your foe for 6 seconds, as well as dealing direct damage. Triggering the trap will also grant you a boon of regeneration, offering additional healing. Fragments of Faith, when triggered, is a 10-second area of effect, which inflicts direct damage and also cripples your foe for 6 seconds. The trap boon grants 5 seconds of stability and 8 seconds of ages, and also acts as a stun breaker. Light's Judgment causes direct damage and applies 10 stacks of vulnerability to your targets. It also reveals stealthed enemies and blocks stealth abilities for 1 second. The boon triggered by activation of the trap is Swiftness, which lasts for 10 seconds. Test of Faith is an impressive looking trap which lasts for 6 seconds and is unblockable. It also cripples for 6 seconds as its damage hits enemies every 0.75 seconds whilst they are inside it. The boon granted is Protection, which reduces incoming damage by 33%. The trap Procession of Blades can hit up to 10 times during its duration and grants a 20% crit chance increase for 8 seconds. Dragon's Maw is the elite trap skill for the Dragon Hunter, and inside its radius, enemies are pulled towards its centre, as well as taking direct damage for 4 seconds, and being slowed for 4 seconds. The triggered boon you receive is 10 stacks of might. The slowing effect can be triggered to affect all traps using the Dragon Hunter trait Piercing Light, which also reduces the cooldown of all traps by 20%. Hunter's Determination is also a brilliant trait when facing enemies who use movement impairing effects. This trait grants Aegis for 8 seconds when you are affected by these kinds of crowd controls. So that's all the unique abilities and utility slot skills currently available for the Guardian. I hope this has helped you understand them a little better. We will continue our journey of discovery in part 3 when we look at all the Guardian's current weapons and their mechanics. When the next expansion hits, I will be making guides for the Guardian's updated skills and new specialization, riding that hype train all the way to victory. I want to thank everyone who has shared images of their Guardians on my previous video and on the Guild Wars 2 Reddit. I also want to thank veteran Guardians who have taken the time to share their experience with new players. Their advice and your screenshots and artwork will be featured in the last episode of this series. There is still time to submit your images and advice for that installment. There are links below for both those Reddit threads. I highly recommend anyone who loves Fashion Wars to tune in to part 5 for all that lovely eye candy. If you are thinking of joining the Guild Wars 2 community, there are referral links below to both the free-to-play game and the Heart of Thorns expansion. Thanks to the generosity of ArenaNet, these referrals directly support my channel. I also want to show some love to all those amazing patrons I have over on Patreon. Your support and input helps me more than you know. The upcoming Sylvari lore video was requested by my patron Tristan, and I look forward to making more dedicated works for all my patrons in the future. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and a thumbs down if you didn't. And as always, thanks for watching.